"Sir, step back. What's broken in her?" Bites deeper than teeth. The voice cracked like a whip down the corridor, sharp and certain. Jack Rourke froze, mop still dripping in his hands. The custodian cart stood between him and the security guard, who was now gesturing violently toward the rec room's double doors. "Don't go in there." A beat, then a sound. No, more like a wail, curled through the hallway like smoke. Thin, high, barely human. Jack's jaw clenched. Inside that room, something was breaking. Not glass. Something quieter, and somehow more permanent. From where he stood, Jack could see the girl, curled up in the far corner of the rec room, arms tight around her knees. Her blonde hair hung like a curtain over her face. She rocked back and forth, fast, rhythmic. Every fluorescent flicker above her seemed to make her flinch. A circle of adults had gathered, nurses, staff, 2 soldiers, even the base chaplain, none of them daring to step forward. "She's been like this for 20 minutes, one whispered. "The counselor's on her way." "No, she's not," muttered someone else. "She left the base for the weekend." "Where's her mother?" another asked. No one answered. Jack looked around. No one moved. The guard raised his voice. "Sir, I'm giving you a direct order. Do not interfere." Jack didn't even blink. "I'm not here to interfere." And then, without asking permission or waiting for a green light, he stepped through the door. Inside, the air was thinner. Jack moved slow, like the floor might shatter under him. He didn't speak, didn't look at her too directly, just kept walking, past the vending machines, past the frozen faces, toward the old piano at the far end of the room. No one ever used it. A beat-up upright, nicked with decades of use, its keys probably out of tune. He sat. The bench creaked under his weight. The silence was loaded, half warning, half disbelief. He set his fingers on the keys and played. Not loud, not fast, not impressive. Just a simple progression. 4 chords, the kind you could hum in your sleep. He kept his eyes on the yellowing keys, his hands moving steady, like he'd done it 1,000 times in another life. Behind him, the girl's rocking slowed. From the mezzanine above, behind one-way glass, a woman in olive green uniform leaned forward ever so slightly. Her name, Colonel Riley Harlow. Her posture, military perfect. But her fingers had curled into a tight, trembling fist. She said nothing. She just watched. Downstairs, Jack's music continued. A waltz, barely breathed. Something slow, intimate, almost tender. And then, movement. The girl, still in her corner, lifted her head. Her lips stopped their murmur. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. Jack kept playing. No talking, no coaxing, just music. The girl uncurled one leg, then the other. She didn't stand. She didn't smile. But she was no longer rocking. She was listening. "He's just a janitor," someone whispered near the door. Jack heard it. He didn't flinch. The tune shifted into something a touch more hopeful, like clouds slowly parting. The room had stilled. The energy, once sharp and panicked, now hung soft in the air. The girl crawled forward, one slow inch, then another. A soldier near the wall blinked back tears. The guard who had tried to stop Jack said nothing. Jack's left hand repeated the same 3 notes over and over. His right hand hovered, then trickled down a high note that landed like a sigh. 10 minutes passed before anyone dared breathe too loud. 15 before the girl was sitting within arm's reach of the bench. Jack never looked at her, never stopped playing. His body still, his rhythm like breath itself. Then, one final chord. Sustained, hanging in the air like a goodbye. Silence followed. Not tense. Holy. The girl lifted her hand and gently touched the side of the piano. The entire room exhaled. Jack stood. He turned not toward the girl, but toward the doorway, where half a dozen onlookers now parted like sea from stone. He pushed his cart with slow, even strides. As he passed the guard, he said calmly, "Don't mistake silence for absence. She's still in there. You just haven't known how to knock." Upstairs, Riley Harlow didn't move for a long time. She watched the girl, still sitting by the piano, still touching its side like it might dissolve if she let go. She watched the janitor vanish around the corner like a ghost with no medals, and she whispered, to no one but the thick air around her, "Who the hell is he?" That night, Riley didn't sleep. Not much, anyway. Her laptop remained closed. Her uniform lay untouched on the back of the chair. Instead, she stood at her window, watching the lights of the base blink like Morse code. She'd commanded soldiers through artillery storms, signed off on drone strikes, buried friends, decorated the brave, demoted the reckless. But nothing had prepared her for a janitor who walked into chaos and played a child back to stillness. She wasn't angry. She wasn't impressed. She was unsettled, and that scared her more than any atoll field ever had. The first time Colonel Riley Harlow heard that melody, it was in a field hospital near Kandahar. Dust in her throat, dog tags hot against her chest. The piano had been old and cracked, shoved into the corner of a chaplain's tent. A medic played it after a soldier's funeral. No lyrics, just that same aching waltz. She hadn't heard it in years, until today. The next morning, Riley stood alone in the observation room, reviewing the security footage. She told herself it was protocol, that her role required due diligence. But truth be told, she needed to see if what she felt had been real. She fast-forwarded through the footage until the janitor, Jack, the name tag read, walked into frame. No hesitation, no fuss. He walked like someone who knew how silence could become a cage. And then, he played. The same 4 chords, the same impossible stillness. As the girl calmed, Lily, she reminded herself. Riley caught the moment Jack reached the final note. He didn't even look at her. Just stood, as if the moment had nothing to do with him. Riley paused the video, zoomed in on his face. There was nothing extraordinary, no swagger, no smile, just a man who knew something. She leaned back in her chair, arms folded. "What do you see?" asked Lieutenant Harper, knocking gently before entering. "Someone who shouldn't have been in that room," Riley said flatly. And yet, he did more in 10 minutes than 3 therapists in 3 months. Riley didn't answer, just stared at the screen. Harper hesitated, then added, "Sometimes, ma'am, it's not about breaking protocol. It's about breaking through." Riley exhaled through her nose. "Find out who he is. Quietly." "Yes, ma'am." By afternoon, the file landed on her desk. Jack Rourke, age 35, widowed. 1 daughter, age 9. Previous occupation, special education music teacher. Denver Unified School District. Left the profession 3 years ago. The report noted nothing disciplinary, nothing concerning. Just a man who seemed to have stepped sideways out of the world and into hers. Riley sat at her desk for a long time before rising. She didn't call him, didn't summon him with rank. Instead, she walked, all the way to the supply wing, past the echoing corridors, past the eyes that followed her without ever meeting her gaze. When she found him, he was kneeling by a broken water pipe, elbow deep in rust. Jack didn't look up. "I figured I'd get called sooner or later," he said. His voice was steady, but not defensive. Riley folded her arms. "You overstepped." "I know. You violated direct orders." "I know." She paused. "And you calmed a child no one else could reach." This time, Jack did look up. "She didn't need fixing," he said. "She just needed a melody." Riley tilted her head. "That line sound as poetic in your head as it did out loud?" Jack wiped his hands on a rag. Some truths wear better when spoken plain. They stood in silence, the hum of a nearby generator the only sound. "You used to teach," she said at last. He nodded. "Why stop?" Jack hesitated. His jaw tightened. "Because sometimes showing up for other people's children means going home empty." That landed harder than she expected. She didn't press, just said, "What you did wasn't protocol." "I'm not military," he replied. She smiled faintly. "Clearly." Then, before she could talk herself out of it, she said, "You'll report to the music room every evening, 5 o'clock sharp." He blinked. "To clean?" "To play. A beat. No uniforms, no cameras, no audience, just you, the piano, and whoever needs listening." Jack studied her carefully. "Why?" Her voice dropped, almost imperceptibly. "Because yesterday, for the first time in months, Lily fell asleep without medication." Jack absorbed that, nodded once. Riley turned to leave, but before she did, he said, "You know, silence doesn't heal by itself." She paused in the doorway. "I know," she said, then softer, almost to herself. "But it's where healing begins." That evening, the room was empty again. The bench waited. The keys, yellowed but loyal, sat under the soft light of dusk. Jack arrived 5 minutes early. He didn't expect anyone. He certainly didn't expect her. Riley stood in the corner, arms crossed, still in uniform, but with the top button undone. Her eyes followed the room, not him. "I didn't expect company," Jack said. "I'm not here to observe," she replied. "I'm here to remember." "Remember what?" She walked to the bench, rested her hand on it. "That once, a long time ago, I thought music was just pretty noise." Jack sat. He let his fingers hover over the keys. "You know what I've learned?" he said. Riley didn't answer. "That music isn't about filling space. It's about meeting someone where their silence lives." She looked at him, her gaze sharp and unguarded all at once. "Then meet me there," she said. Jack began to play, and this time she sat down beside him. "You know what scares them more than a broken rule?" Jack said softly, not looking up from the keys. Riley Harlow sat beside him, rigid as stone. She said nothing. Jack played on, chords low and steady, like the hum of distant thunder. They're more afraid of something they can't control, like stillness or kindness. Riley didn't respond right away. She watched his hands move over the worn piano, not polished, not perfect, but certain. "Control keeps people alive out there," she finally said. "It's not just power, it's structure, discipline. Without it, people die." Jack nodded once, almost to himself. And without softness, people disappear long before they're gone. That line landed. She turned her face away, jaw tightening. He kept playing. Earlier that day, Riley had sat in her office with 3 base administrators and a stiff report on her desk. "Letting a janitor engage with dependents, especially minors in crisis, is a liability," one officer had said. tapping the folder like it owed him something. Another chimed in. He doesn't have clearance, no psychological certifications, no supervision protocol. It sets a precedent. Riley had listened to all of it, word by word, tight-lipped, silent. Then, she'd said one thing. And yet, he's the only one who's reached her. The room had gone quiet. They hadn't liked it, but they'd stepped back. Temporarily. She knew that clock was ticking. Now, sitting beside Jack, she felt the weight of that ticking more than ever. I used to think, she said slowly, that some kids were just unreachable, especially in the military system. They get shifted, reassigned, left behind in structure more than relationship. Jack kept playing. Riley's voice dropped. I stopped trying to reach them. I started organizing them. Jack let the last chord fade before speaking. You can file a child, Colonel, but you can't heal one that way. She laughed once, sharp and bitter. Do you always speak in parables? He looked at her for the first time. No, only when silence isn't enough. The door creaked behind them. Lily. She stepped in quietly, hugging the wall. Her shoes barely made a sound. Riley tensed, but didn't move. Jack smiled gently and shifted the melody, softened it further. A few higher notes, like sunlight. Through fog. Lily didn't speak, but she walked, slow, hesitant, toward the piano. Her fingers twitched at her sides. Jack reached into his satchel and pulled out a sheet of blank music paper. He folded it carefully and placed it beside him on the bench. Then, without looking at Lily, he said, Sometimes we write without words. Feel free to add to the silence. Lily sat on the floor, not far, not close. Just enough. She picked up the sheet, took a pencil from her pocket, and began to draw. Not notes, but shapes. Symbols. Scribbles. Riley stared at her, unmoving. Her voice low. That's the first time she's sat that close to anyone since arriving. Jack's voice didn't rise. It's not closeness. It's safety. Looks the same. Feels different. Later, after Lily had gone, and the music had slowed to a single repeating phrase, Riley stood. You'll keep coming, she said. It wasn't a question. Jack looked at her. Do you want me to? Yes. A pause. Then, but not for me. Jack raised an eyebrow. For her, then. Riley hesitated. No, she said. For both of us. She walked out before he could answer. But at the door, she turned, hand on the knob, and said quietly, My daughter would have been 8 last month. Jack didn't move. She used to sit under the piano when I practiced, said the music made the floor feel like it was breathing. A silence passed. Jack's hands fell to his lap. She died, Riley continued, voice steady but hollow. Car accident. While I was deployed. Jack closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them slowly. That's why you don't play anymore. She nodded once. Jack didn't offer sympathy. He didn't say sorry. Instead, he said, Maybe the floor is still breathing. It's just waiting for someone to listen again. That night, Riley sat in her quarters, fully dressed, lights off. She stared at her boots, stared until they blurred. Then, without planning to, she walked to the upright piano in the chapel. The keys were dusty, the silence deafening. She pressed one note. It cracked slightly, out of tune. Then another. 3 chords later, her hand started to shake. Not from fear, from memory. A breath, then 2, and suddenly, she wasn't in uniform. She wasn't a colonel. She was just a mother, sitting in the dark, trying to remember what it felt like to make something beautiful, without permission. The piano room smelled like dust and lemon polish. Jack arrived early, as always. He had stopped checking the time. The sun through the high windows told him enough. Soft golden light meant it was almost 5. He sat on the bench, cracked his knuckles once, then let his fingers find their place. Today, he didn't start with melody. He just held a single note, low and steady, long enough for it to become something more than sound. A tone you could lean into, a tone you could trust. The door clicked open. Riley stepped in, civilian clothes this time. Hair tied back, no badge, no rank. Just Riley. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. He shifted into a soft waltz, one she'd recognize by now. She closed the door behind her. Then Lily arrived. No announcement, no glance toward the adults. She just walked in and went straight to her corner near the piano, sat down cross-legged, and opened the small leather-bound notebook Jack had given her the day before. It wasn't much, just recycled pages, blank staff lines, a pencil tucked inside. But Lily had filled 3 of them already with shapes, patterns, even a few timid notes. She didn't speak, but she tapped her foot gently in rhythm. Not to the music exactly, to something older, something inside. Jack noticed. So did Riley. He let the chords shift again. Warmer, a little braver. Riley finally spoke. "What is that?" Jack smiled faintly. "It's a progression I made up years ago. Called it Blue Waltz. Used it to reach kids who couldn't talk yet." "Why blue?" "Because it calms the chaos," he said. Then, after a beat, "And because it doesn't ask for attention, it just stays." Later, as Lily doodled in silence, Riley sat on the windowsill, her eyes far away. "My ex-husband used to say I only spoke in orders," she said. Jack leaned back on the bench. Did he say that as a joke or a wound? "Both," she exhaled. "I used to laugh, until I realized my daughter had picked up the same habit. She'd salute me before bedtime." Jack winced slightly. "That's a hard echo to hear." Riley nodded. "I thought I was giving her structure. Turns out I was giving her walls." Jack was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that clung to the air like a hush. "The hardest part of losing a child is realizing which part of them you never gave yourself permission to know." Riley looked down, jaw clenched. "I never heard her favorite song," she whispered. Jack turned gently toward her. "Let's find it together." That night, Jack sat with Emma, his 9-year-old daughter, in their small, off-base apartment. She was coloring on the floor, legs sprawled out like tangled vines. He was folding laundry, humming Blue Waltz under his breath. "You keep playing that one a lot," Emma said, without looking up. Jack smiled. "It helps someone sleep." "Is she sad?" Jack paused. "Yes, in a quiet way." Emma looked up. "Like you after Mom?" He swallowed. "Yeah, sweetheart. Just like that." Emma nodded, then went back to coloring. Then softly she asked, "Does she have anyone to tuck her in?" "No." "Then maybe next time you play, you should end with a lullaby," Emma said. "It's what Mom used to do." Jack set the laundry down. "What would I do without you?" Emma grinned. "Burn your socks and forget to eat." The next afternoon, Jack brought something with him to the piano room, a faded folder of old sheet music, mostly handwritten. He laid it out on the bench before starting. Lily came in and walked straight to him. This time, she didn't sit on the floor. She sat beside him. Jack didn't react, but his heart almost forgot how to beat. He picked up the pencil from her notebook and drew a circle over one measure. "Want to try something?" he asked gently. Lily gave a small nod. He pointed to the first note, played it, then paused. She reached for the key and pressed it. The sound was soft, unsure, but it rang. Jack played the next one. She echoed, and again, and again. It wasn't music. It was connection. It was a bridge being built one finger at a time. Riley, watching from the corner, covered her mouth with her hand. She didn't cry, but her eyes said she wanted to. When the session ended, Lily lingered longer than usual. She touched the keys with both hands, once, then slid her notebook toward Jack. He opened it. Inside, a drawing of 3 figures, one with curly hair, one with short hair, one with a tight bun, all standing in front of a piano. He pointed. "Is that me?" Lily nodded. "And this?" She hesitated, then tapped the figure with the bun. Riley froze. Lily picked up her pencil and wrote a single word under the picture. "Safe." No one moved. Jack finally whispered, "That's the only word that ever matters." Riley turned away for a moment, blinking hard. When she turned back, she knelt beside Lily and whispered something so low, even Jack didn't catch it. But whatever she said, Lily didn't flinch. She just nodded once and stayed. That night, Riley walked past the chapel. She paused, then stepped inside. The piano was waiting. She sat. No one watched. No one ordered her. She pressed a key, then another, and slowly, almost shyly, began to play Blue Waltz. It wasn't perfect, but for the first time in years, Riley Harlow wasn't playing to perform. She was playing to feel. The folded envelope had been in Riley's drawer for almost 3 years. No name on it, just a smudge of pencil where she'd once tried to write to Lily, but erased it halfway through. It was 3 a.m. when she finally took it out. The barracks were quiet. Even the heating unit had stopped humming. Just the occasional distant echo of boots in a hallway, and the sound of her own breath, shallow and uncertain. She held the envelope like it might burn her. Then slowly, she tore it open. Her own handwriting stared back at her. Raw, uneven, the kind you only write when your hands are shaking, but your heart won't stop screaming. "Sweetheart, I don't know how to say goodbye without breaking something in both of us. But I also don't know how to stay without shattering the little strength I have left. They told me time heals. But what if time forgets you first? If you're reading this, it means I'm still too much of a coward to say it out loud. But I love you, Lily. I loved you more than I knew how to show. I still do. I just didn't know how to stop saluting when I should have started hugging." She pressed the paper to her chest. Then she cried for the first time since Lily was taken. The next morning, the chapel was already open when Jack arrived. He wasn't playing, just sitting there, elbows on his knees, looking at the worn floor like it held answers he couldn't name. Riley entered quietly. She held the letter in her pocket. Her heart beat against it like it wanted out. Jack didn't look up. She sat beside him. "I read it," she said. Jack turned slightly, brows furrowed. She pulled the note from her jacket and held it between them. "I wrote this 3 years ago. I was going to leave it at Lily's foster home and disappear, but I couldn't. I couldn't even fold it right." Jack looked at her. Not the paper. Her. You were still a mother, even when you didn't know how to be. She lowered her eyes. "You think that counts for anything?" He answered without hesitation. "It counts for everything." She looked at the keys. "I kept running, into deployments, into assignments, into anything that didn't require feeling." Jack nodded slowly. "Funny how silence doesn't judge you, just holds you, until you're ready to make music out of it. Riley glanced at him. Is that what you did? He shrugged, smiling faintly. Music was never about performance for me. It was a place to rest. She stood, moved toward the piano, and laid the letter down gently across the music stand. I want Lily to read it. Not now, but someday, when she can. Jack approached, careful, like approaching a wild animal that had finally stopped running. She's coming back today, he said. Riley's breath caught. What? She called Emma last night, asked if she could come just to listen. I think she's ready. Not for answers, just presence. Riley's voice trembled. What do I even say to her? Jack placed a hand over hers, warm and steady. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Just be there. Let her choose the first note. Lily arrived at exactly 3:14 p.m. She was wearing a faded hoodie, oversized on her thin frame, and carrying her notebook like it was a lifeline. She didn't speak when Riley opened the chapel door. She just looked up and paused. Then, without a word, she stepped inside. Jack stayed at the back of the room, giving space. Riley knelt on the floor, eye level with her daughter, not reaching out, not rushing, just waiting. Lily's lips parted like she might say something, then closed. Instead, she took out the notebook and flipped to a blank page. She drew a single note, a whole note, alone on the staff, then slid the book toward her mother. Riley looked down at it and whispered, "Is that me?" Lily nodded once. Whole, not half. The words cut through Riley like sunlight through a dark room. "I don't feel whole," Riley said gently. Lily looked at her, then added something under the note. She wrote, "But you stayed." Riley couldn't speak. Instead, she reached out, slowly, carefully, and held the edges of the notebook. Not Lily's hands. Not yet. Just the space between them. Jack watched, silent tears running down his cheek. That evening, the three of them sat at the Baldwin piano. Riley on the left, Lily on the right, Jack in the middle, his hands guiding without leading. They played nothing complicated. Just chords. Layered. Soft. Lily pressed a G. Riley followed with a C. Jack resolved with an E minor. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. A broken family, mending not with words, but with sound. Outside the chapel, Emma sat on the steps with her sketch pad, watching the sunset. When Riley stepped out, she looked up and grinned. "So, are you, like, her mom now? Or still the mystery lady?" Riley chuckled. "I'm hoping to earn the title again." Emma nodded, flipping a page. "You'll get there. You already look less military." Riley laughed louder this time. "What's that supposed to mean?" Emma winked. "You finally stopped saluting the people you love." Riley looked back at the chapel door, where Lily still sat at the piano with Jack. "No," she said softly. "Now I'm learning to sit beside them." The air in the chapel was still, the kind of stillness that begged you not to speak, only to feel. A Sunday evening hush had settled, warm and sacred, as if the walls themselves were listening. Jack sat at the Baldwin Grand, his fingers resting on the keys but unmoving, like a man waiting to breathe. Across from him sat Lily, legs swinging beneath the pew, her little notebook beside her. She hadn't opened it today. She didn't need to. Riley stood at the doorway, unsure whether to step in or stay invisible. Emma, from her seat at the back, whispered, "She's not afraid of the piano anymore." Riley nodded. "She's not the only one." Jack finally pressed a chord. Soft, hesitant. A low E minor. The sound drifted, delicate as snowfall. Lily's head turned slightly. Jack nodded once, inviting. Lily reached across, tiny fingers pressing a single G note. Then she looked at him. He didn't say a word, but the smile that flickered at the edge of his lips was full of something more powerful than any affirmation. And then, a third note. From behind them. Riley had stepped forward, almost unconsciously, and touched a C key, forming a chord they'd played before. E minor. G, C. A melody of mending. Lily blinked. We're playing together? Riley knelt beside her, voice quiet. We're learning together. The little girl looked from Riley to Jack. Can a song fix people? Jack finally spoke, his voice low and steady. No song fixes you, but the right one reminds you you're worth the repair. Lily stared at the keys. I want to play something that makes people feel warm. Riley placed a hand gently on her daughter's back. Then play from the part that still hurts. That night, Jack walked Riley back to the barracks. Neither said much until they reached the steps. Thank you, she said. He tilted his head. For what? For not rushing it. For not pushing her. Or me. Jack looked up at the stars. You don't pull a seed out of the ground to see if it's growing. Riley smiled. That's one of those things you say that sounds simple, but stays with you. Jack chuckled. I don't say much, so I try to make it count. Riley hesitated. Then, with a breath, do you ever feel like you missed your moment? Like the world moved on, and you didn't go with it? Jack didn't answer right away. Then, every day, until I realized, maybe my moment wasn't behind me. Maybe it's been waiting for me to show up. Their eyes met. Neither looked away. And for a second, the silence between them didn't feel like emptiness. It felt like promise. The next afternoon, something changed. It was in the way Lily ran down the hall instead of walking. It was in the way she grabbed Emma's hand and pulled her toward the music room. And it was in what she said when they entered. Can we write a song? Emma blinked. Like, a real one? Lily nodded fiercely. A song about almost giving up, but not. Jack looked up from tuning the Baldwin. Sounds like a song the world needs. Riley stood behind them, arms folded, but eyes soft. Then we'll help you write it. Emma sat beside Lily, pulled out a pencil. What do we call it? Lily grinned. Let me stay. Jack inhaled sharply. Riley's hand went to her heart. That phrase, those 3 words, were the first Lily had ever whispered to Jack in the chapel months ago, curled up on a pew with her teddy bear and no mother in sight. Jack looked at her. You remember that? I never forgot, Lily said. It's when I stopped being scared of people with quiet eyes. Riley leaned forward. What do you want the first line to be? Lily didn't hesitate. You found me where silence falls loudest. Emma's pencil scratched it down with reverence. Jack sat, let the words settle. You're not writing a song, he said finally. You're writing a bridge. To what? Riley asked. He looked at Lily. To each other. For days, the music room became their sanctuary. Each line carved from Lily's heart. Each chord shaped by Jack's ear. Each harmony tested by Riley's trembling voice, steadier with each note. Even Emma hummed along, sometimes holding Lily's hand as they rewrote verses. No pressure, no perfection. Just 4 people trying to stitch their cracks together with melody. One afternoon, Riley stayed behind after rehearsal. Jack was closing the piano lid, careful as always. She walked to him, closed this time, not out of accident, but choice. I've been thinking, she said. Jack looked up. When this song is finished, I want to share it. On stage. For the unit. For Lily. For everyone who's ever been one step away from giving up. Jack nodded slowly. You're ready. She bit her lip. I'm terrified. He smiled. Then you're definitely ready. And then, like it was the most natural thing in the world, she leaned forward and kissed his cheek. A brief touch, but real. Warm. Jack didn't move, but something softened behind his eyes. Riley stepped back, flustered. Sorry, that was... He stopped her with a whisper. Don't be. And then he added, softer still, sometimes the best songs are written when you stop editing. The auditorium wasn't grand. It had no velvet curtains, no golden fixtures, no rows of cushioned seats. Just folding chairs lined up in rows, fluorescent lights humming above, and a modest wooden stage pushed up against one wall of the base rec center. But to Lily, it might as well have been Carnegie Hall. She stood at the edge of the stage, tiny boots too big for her, clinging to her worn notebook like it was a lifeline. Her eyes scanned the rows. Soldiers in uniform, civilians, medics, even the base commander. All quiet, all waiting. Riley kneeled beside her, smoothing Lily's hair into place. You're not alone up there. I know, Lily whispered. You and Mr. Jack and Emma will be behind me. No, Riley said softly. You've never been alone, even when you thought you were. That line stuck with Lily. It stayed with her as she stepped onto the stage, and when Jack joined her, silent, steady, hands brushing the keys of the old Baldwin Grand. They shared a glance that said everything. He didn't need to speak to say, "You got this, kid." Earlier that morning, the base had buzzed with something different. Not drills, not orders. Hope. The word had spread. The janitor's girl is performing. And not out of pity. Not because someone pulled strings, but because she had written something the whole base needed to hear. Backstage, Riley paced like she was awaiting orders for deployment. Emma sat cross-legged with her guitar, running scales under her breath. Jack tuned the Baldwin in silence, but his hands shook slightly. You nervous? Riley asked, coming up beside him. He shrugged. It's not the notes I'm worried about. What then? He met her eyes. That we'll play this, and it still won't be enough. Riley's gaze softened. You already gave her the thing no one else could. What? Permission to heal. Jack let that settle. Then, and what did you give her? Riley's voice caught a little. A reason to try. The moment came. The room fell into a hush, so complete, even the old heater dared not rattle. Lily stepped forward. Jack played the first few chords. Soft, rich, solemn. Emma joined in, her guitar a gentle pulse underneath. Then Lily opened her mouth. You found me where silence falls loudest, and the world didn't notice I was gone. But you stayed where others kept walking. You heard me before there was a song. Her voice was not loud, but it was true. Every syllable cracked open a wound and wrapped it in warmth. The room was frozen. Some soldiers shifted in their seats, looking down at their boots. A woman in uniform brushed a tear away quickly. The base commander sat up straighter, lips parted slightly. Then came Riley's voice, clear, strong, but trembling at the edges like glass catching morning light. I almost forgot how to whisper. I buried my heart to survive. But you showed me the rhythm of mercy, and it made me feel alive. Jack's piano swelled, not flashy, not complex, just honest, like every key had something to say. And when the last line came, all three voices joined in. So if I tremble, let it be dancing. If I cry, let it be free. Let the quiet be loud with forgiveness, and let love sound like me. The final chord faded, No applause, just stillness, then a sniffle, then another, and then, like a wave breaking, clapping, rising to cheers. People stood, soldiers saluted, and in the very back, a grizzled sergeant with medals down his chest bowed his head and whispered, "That girl just made this place holy." Later, after the crowd had filtered out and the chairs had been folded away, Jack sat alone at the piano. His fingers hovered over the keys like he was unsure whether to start something or say goodbye. Riley approached, holding Lily's notebook in her hands. She left it behind. Jack smiled. Maybe on purpose. Riley turned a few pages. "There's a drawing inside. Of all of us." Jack raised an eyebrow. "She drew me with hair." "You have hair." "Not that much." Riley sat beside him. "She called the picture My Real Family." Jack didn't reply. So she added, "Do you think we are?" He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, the answer wasn't complicated. "Yes." She laughed softly, almost disbelieving. "Even with the chaos, the pain, the past?" Jack turned to the keys, pressing a gentle chord. "Maybe that's what makes it real." Riley leaned her head against his shoulder. He didn't move. Didn't need to. They just sat there, letting the quiet hum between them. Not empty, but full. And then Riley whispered, "You know what I realized tonight?" "What?" "You never needed to be loud to be heard." Jack smiled, eyes on the keys. "Neither did you." The next morning, the rec center felt different, quieter somehow, like the walls were holding their breath after what they'd witnessed. Jack was mopping the side hallway, slow and steady, the way he always did. But today, his steps were lighter, and his mind unusually full. Lily's voice still echoed inside him. Every lyric, every note, lingered like a trace of something sacred. He didn't notice the boots behind him until a sharp voice cut the air. "Janitor." Jack turned. Commander Alana Rourke. Her posture was perfect. Chin lifted, chest squared in her formal navy blue uniform. Her eyes, a piercing steel gray, were unreadable. The same woman who had once dismissed Lily's presence as a disruption now stood with the air of a judge about to pass sentence. Jack met her gaze, calm. "I want to speak with you. Alone." She didn't wait for agreement, just turned sharply and walked toward the back office. Inside, sunlight filtered through slatted blinds, casting long stripes across the concrete floor. Jack stepped in slowly, his mop still in hand like a shield. Rourke shut the door. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, in a voice as clipped as a marching order, she said, "That performance last night, was that your doing?" Jack tilted his head. She clarified. "Was it your idea?" He shook his head. "My daughter," she added, voice lower now, as if the word cost her something. "Asked to sing. Said she wrote it for her father. I assumed she meant you." Jack didn't answer, so she stepped closer. "You've been spending time with her, with Riley, with Emma." Jack simply nodded. "Why?" Her voice wasn't angry, just lost. He signed slowly, deliberately, because someone had to. Rourke stared. "You think I didn't try?" Jack didn't answer, not with words, just looked at her. And sometimes silence was the most honest thing in the room. Her jaw tightened. "Do you know how hard it is to serve this country, to lead men and women into war zones, and come home to a daughter who doesn't recognize your face?" Jack's eyes softened. "She blames me for leaving," Rourke whispered. "But I did it for her. Everything I've done, this entire career, was to make her proud. She looked away for a long moment, then admitted, "But I don't even know what makes her smile anymore." Jack took a step forward. Quiet, respectful. Then he signed. "Maybe you don't have to fix it. Just show up." Rourke looked down. "And if she doesn't want me to?" Jack's reply was slow, deliberate. "Then you wait, and you earn it. Day by day." That landed. For a moment, Rourke looked not like a commander, but a woman on the edge of her own walls. "She talks about you, you know. Says you make her feel safe. Says you listen." Jack's brow furrowed. "She never said that about me." He placed a hand on his chest, then nodded at her. "You're still her mother." Rourke exhaled shakily. "That girl, she sang like she was born from pain." Jack nodded, but not abandoned. The words settled in the air like a benediction. Then Rourke asked, quieter this time, "Do you believe people like me deserve forgiveness?" Jack took a long moment, then signed. "If not, what are we all fighting for?" Later that afternoon, Riley found Jack sitting outside the barracks on the loading dock. His jacket was off, sleeves rolled, hands covered in grease from fixing the busted heater pipe. "You always fixing something," she teased. Jack didn't look up, just raised a brow. She sat beside him. "Lily's been writing again. Said the next song might be called The Quietest Hero." Jack smiled, just slightly. "She thinks it's about you," Riley added. "But I have a feeling it's about more than that." Jack finally looked at her, eyes questioning. Riley shrugged. "About what it means to be heard without yelling, to fight without fists, to love even when it hurts." A beat of silence. Then Jack tapped his chest twice, signed "you," and pointed gently at her heart. Riley blinked, caught off guard. "Me?" He nodded. She smiled, then leaned in a little, voice softer. "You know, Jack, some people come into your life like storms, loud, messy, fast." He waited. "But you," she whispered, "you showed up like winter, quiet, still, but strong enough to change everything." Jack looked away, but the corner of his mouth lifted. She added, "I don't think I ever thanked you." He signed. "You didn't have to." But she took his hand, held it. "I wanted to." They sat there for a while, her shoulder against his. Two people bruised by the world, but no longer alone in it. And across the lot, from the corner of a window, a young girl with a notebook and a guitar watched them, smiling, writing down something. Because maybe, just maybe, this was the next verse. The first frost of December dusted the barracks windows in lace-like patterns. Lily traced them with her fingertip, lost in thought, as if trying to write a song in the clouds of her breath. Across the room, Emma practiced braiding her hair in the mirror, humming one of Lily's songs under her breath. Riley stood at the door, watching them quietly. Her girls. She used to call them that, back when the house still smelled like pancakes and deployment felt like someone else's story. Now, she felt more like a visitor to their world than the woman who once held it together. Jack entered without a word, a small tray in hand. Hot cocoa, extra marshmallows. He placed it on the dresser without fuss. "Jack?" Emma asked, eyes lighting up. He raised his brows in mock surprise. "You called me by name?" She giggled and nodded. Lily turned. "He's the only one who remembers how I like my cocoa." Riley tensed at that. Barely. But Jack caught it. He walked to her slowly, signed. "There's still time." She looked up. "Is there?" Jack nodded. If you listen more than you speak, if you show up, even when it's awkward, that's what matters. She studied his face. How do you know that? Jack paused, then signed. Because I didn't, and I lost more than words. That silence between them wasn't heavy, it was honest. That evening, the base held its annual winter charity gala. Simple, low-key, more family potluck than ballroom. Folding chairs, a stage made from old pallets, soldiers in dress uniforms standing beside children in hand-me-down coats. Mismatched, yet beautiful. Commander Rourke took the podium as the opening act. This base, she began, has weathered deployments, lost good men and women, and watched children grow in our shadows. But tonight, I want to thank someone who reminded us that being strong doesn't always mean being loud. She looked down briefly, then up again. A janitor reminded me of that. Whispers ran through the crowd. And his daughter, she added, her voice thickening, taught me that sometimes the bravest thing a soldier can do is go home. From the back of the room, Lily stood holding her guitar. Her fingers shook, but Jack was beside her. Not pushing, just present. She walked to the stage like she was stepping into a new chapter. This one, Lily said into the mic, is for my mom, and for anyone who's ever been loved, in silence. Then she sang. No lights, no background track, just a voice and a guitar, and the kind of hush that falls when every soul in the room leans in. He never raised his voice, but I heard him clearer than thunder. He never said I was brave, but he stayed when I went under. She wore steel on her shoulders, but paper in her eyes, and somehow I loved them both, through every goodbye. When she finished, the room stayed quiet. Too moved to clap right away. Jack stood, not clapping either, just looking at Riley. She was crying, but not from regret, from recognition. After the event, Jack stepped out into the cold to clear his head. The wind bit through his sleeves, but he didn't mind. It was real. Riley followed him outside, her boots crunching over gravel. She's beautiful, she said, wrapping her arms around herself. That voice, I didn't know she had that in her. Jack nodded. She wrote that for both of us? He nodded again. Riley exhaled. I kept waiting to hear I hate you in her lyrics, but it never came. Jack signed, because she doesn't. She just needed you to see her. They stood in silence for a beat. Then Riley asked the question that had been burning through her for days. Jack, do you believe people can change the story halfway through? Jack turned to her slowly, signed. Not just change it. Rewrite it. She gave a soft, shaky laugh. And what about you? Do you ever wish you could speak? Jack's eyes met hers. He signed. Sometimes. But then I meet people who listen anyway. She looked at him. Really looked. You're more than you let on. So are you. She reached up, touched the side of his face, then pulled back, hesitating. Jack didn't move. Then she whispered, I don't know what this is between us, but it doesn't feel like a mistake. Jack signed slowly, deliberately. Then maybe it's not. She smiled, bittersweet, unsure, but real. You know, you're probably the first man I've ever met who makes silence feel safe. Jack looked down, signed, You're the first woman who ever looked past it. That landed. Hard. Riley stepped forward, just enough that their breath mingled in the air. I think I'd like to hear the rest of your story. Jack gently took her hand, then lifted it to his chest. Just once. It wasn't an answer. It was a beginning. The barracks were nearly empty now. Just the soft echo of distant boots and the ticking of a broken wall clock in the hallway, a quiet not often found on base, but tonight it felt sacred. Jack sat on the edge of Lily's bunk, folding one of her sweaters, something Riley had never seen him do. Deliberate, careful, as if each motion spoke what he never could. Across the room, Riley knelt by a box filled with her daughter's drawings. Stick figures, rainbows. One of them showed a tall man with long blonde hair holding hands with a little girl, both standing next to a piano. Jack saw it and paused. "She drew you," Riley whispered. "Not me. Not us. You." He didn't flinch. He just nodded, solemnly. Riley leaned against the wall, hugging her knees like a soldier folding inward. "Do you know what haunts me the most?" Jack looked at her. "That she trusted you more in 3 months than she trusted me in 3 years. She swallowed the ache. But maybe she should have." Jack set the sweater down and signed slowly. She just needed someone to stay. Riley closed her eyes. "That's the thing, Jack. I thought protecting her meant leaving her with people who didn't know how to leave." He tilted his head. She looked up. "I told myself duty was love, but love doesn't abandon." Jack reached into his coat and pulled out a folded note, creased, worn from fingers gripping it too many times. He handed it to her. Riley opened it slowly. "To Mom, I don't hate you, but I needed you to see me sing. I needed you to see him hear me. That's all. Love, Lily." Riley didn't cry right away. She just sat there, holding it like a truce flag from a tiny nation of one. Then her voice cracked. "She left this." Jack nodded. "She gave it to me the night before the gala. Told me I could show you, when you were ready to hear it." Riley read it again, and again, until the words blurred. "She's more grown up than I ever gave her credit for." Jack smiled. "She takes after you." Riley gave a soft laugh. God help her. Later that night, the girls came home from the overnight youth retreat. Lily stepped into the barracks cautiously, sensing a shift in the air. Emma ran to Jack immediately, arms around his waist. "Guess what? I made a friendship bracelet." Jack raised his brows, delighted. Emma slipped it onto his wrist. "It's pink and brown, like cocoa and marshmallows." He nodded in thanks, pretending it was a military medal. Meanwhile, Lily lingered near the door. She saw her mom seated at the desk, holding the note. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Riley stood. "I read it," she said softly. "All of it." Lily looked down. "Okay. I deserved worse," Riley added. Silence. Lily stepped forward. "I didn't want to hurt you." "You didn't," Riley said. "You reminded me what love should sound like." Lily blinked. "And what's that?" Riley's voice trembled. "Music. You. Him. Us." That was all. No speeches. No drama. Just mother and daughter, finding each other in the wreckage of the unsaid. They hugged, for real this time. Not because they had to, but because they both wanted it to last. Jack watched from the doorway. Quiet. Present. Riley turned to him. You saved her." Jack shook his head. "No. She saved herself. I just gave her a place to do it." Then Lily did something that no one expected. She walked over to Jack, reached up, and touched the bracelet Emma had made. "It suits you." Jack smiled. She looked at her mom. "You know he plays piano, right?" Riley raised a brow. "He does?" "Yeah," Lily said. "Like, really plays." Jack froze slightly. Riley turned to him. "Well," she smirked, arms crossed. "Are you going to let us hear it? Or are you just gonna keep folding sweaters and stealing the hearts of teenage girls?" Jack gave her a mock look of protest. Lily chimed in, grinning. "He's too humble. He played for the therapy group. Half of them cried." Riley stepped closer. "Then play for us." He hesitated, hands twitching slightly. Riley added, "It's okay if you miss a note. We'll still be here." That did it. The small piano in this corner of the rec room wasn't much. Scuffed, keys a little sticky. But in Jack's hands, it transformed. The first note was soft, almost afraid. Then came the next. Then the swell. Lily sat cross-legged near the floor, Emma curled up next to her. Riley stood back, arms crossed, but her lips parted slightly, eyes glassy. The melody wasn't just beautiful, it was honest. A song without words, telling a story none of them had ever dared say out loud. Loss, love, return, forgiveness. Jack played like he was carving out space for every scar they'd carried. When he finished, the room remained still. Until Riley whispered, "That was what I needed to hear." Jack looked at her. Then I meant every note. Later, as the girls went to bed, Riley lingered. "Jack?" she said softly. He turned. "I'm scared," she confessed. "That I'm too late. That I've broken something I can't fix." Jack walked over, gently took her hand, and placed it over his chest. "This still works," he signed. "Yours does too." Then he raised her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles. Just once. Riley whispered, "You love them like they're yours." Jack replied, "They are. And so are you, if you want to be." She smiled, and this time she didn't look away. "I think I already am." And in that moment, neither of them needed words. The music had already spoken. Snow fell gently that morning, brushing against the window panes of the base like soft fingers, tapping out a final lullaby. Winter had arrived in full, but inside the barracks, it was warm. Not from the heaters, but from something else. Something that had finally found its way home. Jack stood at the upright piano in the rec hall again. This time, not alone. Riley sat beside him on the bench, her hand resting just over his. No words, just breath shared between two people who no longer needed sound to understand one another. Behind them, Lily and Emma danced barefoot on the wooden floor, spinning slowly, arms stretched like dandelions in the wind. "Isn't it funny?" Riley whispered. "How healing doesn't come like a hurricane. It comes like this, quiet as snow." Jack nodded, then signed. "The loudest changes happen in silence." She smiled. "You're full of those little truths, aren't you?" "Only the ones I lived through." Later that afternoon, they gathered outside the chapel on base. A small ceremony. Just close friends, soldiers, and the girls. No medals, no formal salutes, just life. Humbled. Riley stepped to the front, wearing her dress blues. Her speech was written on a note card, but halfway through, she set it aside and looked out. "There was a time I thought strength meant standing alone. That love was something you had to earn by proving you didn't need it." She glanced at Jack, who stood off to the side in a dark wool coat, holding Emma's mittened hand. "But someone taught me that true strength, real strength, isn't about holding your ground. It's about letting someone in, even when your ground is shaking." Lily's eyes shimmered. "I used to think I was the soldier in this story," Riley continued. "But maybe the bravest person here wasn't the one in uniform. Maybe it was the janitor who played the piano for a crying child and never once asked for thanks." The audience went silent. Then she smiled. "He never asked, but I'm going to say it anyway." She turned to Jack. "Thank you for saving my daughter's voice, and for helping me find mine." Applause came like a slow-building wave, quiet, heartfelt, respectful. Jack simply bowed his head, then gently squeezed Emma's hand. That evening, they packed the last box from the barracks. Riley's reassignment had been approved. Not overseas, not combat, but local, training young medics. Jack would stay on base maintenance, with a promotion. And the girls? They didn't want to leave the piano. "But it's not ours," Lily said. "What if the next janitor doesn't know how to play it?" Jack bent down and touched the Baldwin's side. Faint, almost invisible, was a carving. LW plus EW. Keep playing. Riley smiled. Maybe it already belongs to the people who need it most. They moved into a small home near the edge of town. Nothing fancy, but it had a porch, a garden, and best of all, a room that fit the piano Jack had rebuilt piece by piece. Not the Baldwin, his own. On the first night, Riley cooked stew while the girls argued over whether the piano room should have beanbags or floor cushions. Jack just watched, absorbing it all like sunlight on old skin. Later, as the girls drifted to sleep, Riley walked into the living room, found Jack tuning the final key. "Still trying to make it perfect?" she teased. He smiled. She sat beside him and asked softly, "Do you remember what I said when we met?" Jack raised a brow. "I said, 'You don't look like a janitor.'" He laughed soundlessly. "And you," she added, leaning closer, "didn't look like a miracle." He turned to her, something tender flickering behind his eyes. "I think we were both wrong," she whispered. Then she reached into her pocket and handed him a folded piece of paper. Inside was a photo, the four of them, arms linked, standing in front of the chapel piano. At the bottom, Lily had written in marker, "We kept playing." Jack looked at it for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Riley touched his chest. "So, where do we go from here?" Jack signed. "Anywhere. As long as the music keeps going." And so it did. Every Sunday. They opened the house to neighborhood kids. Jack played, Riley served cocoa, and Lily, her voice now clear, confident, would sing. Emma made bracelets for anyone who came, always adding a pink bead for joy. The old upright piano never missed a note. Not because it was flawless, but because it had been played by someone who knew how to listen. And when people asked who Jack was, the man with the quiet eyes and the gentle hands, they never said the janitor. They said, "That's the guy who saved a soldier's daughter with a piano." And every time Riley heard it, she'd smile. Because that was the truth. But what they didn't know, what only she and Lily truly understood, was that somewhere along the way, he saved them all. And now that Jack's final note has faded into the quiet warmth of a healed heart, we'd love to know, where in the world are you watching this story from? Is it a snowy porch in Montana? A cozy kitchen in Georgia? Or maybe a quiet evening in the Midwest? Your stories, your hearts, they're why we do this. If this story moved you, even just a little, we invite you to subscribe to the channel. Not because you have to, but because maybe, just maybe, the next story might find you at the right time too. Thank you, truly, for spending your time with us. In a world that often rushes past kindness, it means more than you know. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, stay safe, stay hopeful, and keep a little music in your heart.